today marks exactly 10 years since David Cameron announced the news that if the Conservatives were elected in 2015, we would hold a referendum to leave the European Union. It's come, therefore, a day of legend and song that we should always celebrate, because today it's coincided with more EU whinging. It's been alleged that the Eurocrats are frustrated that the Prime Minister has not yet set a date for the general election, as it has supposedly disrupted a really exciting summit meeting that they're planning to have. So, while our general election date has nothing to do with them, it's a reminder of what we're missing: unelected, whinging bureaucrats propping up the rotten carcass of the neoliberal order. So, 10 years on from the announcement, nearly 8 years on from the referendum, and 4 years on from our departure, with the Germans well into their recession, I thought best to look back on Brexit with my distinguished panel. It is rather arrogant of them for some really rather boring summit to think they should be told the date of the general election before the Cabinet and the King, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, when we were in the European Union, did we have to sort of consult? Did the Prime Minister have to consult them in those days about when he was or she was planning an election? It's very odd. Yeah, it is.
Is it, Jacob, a true story?
Yes.
Firstly, it's in the Daily Express, and then there's a quote from you. Now, nothing wrong with that. But was it? Wow, I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg. This is appalling. I've heard this stuff. Or did they say, hello, Jacob?
It's a very well-sourced Daily Express story.
Jacob. Well,
but isn't it just a little reminder of how lucky we are? We're not in control of our own destiny. Yes, we do.
Oh,
we know it from the Daily Express. Very reliable paper of record.
Not anymore.
No, it has been, yes. I mean, great history of the Daily Express.
Well, of course. But come on. It's one of those non-stories.
10 years since David Cameron, now Foreign Secretary, announced that referendum.
Good man.
Do you think he looks back on that decision with pride?
Yes, he does, because David Cameron did the right thing. He saw this bubbling up in the country, he saw it bubbling up within the Conservative Party, and something had to be done. Now, I was there with him for the launch of the campaign, to stay within Europe. We got it wrong. We misjudged the view of the British people. But what did he do? He did the decent thing and resigned.
Michael, do you think it was the right thing to do? Do you think that having a referendum fits in with the British constitutional history?
I think that it's difficult to remember the pressure that Cameron was under, both from within his own party and awkward backbenchers like you, and there were growing numbers, almost by the day, and also lots of party members leaving, donations going to you, and the rise of UKIP. I mean, people talk about, Reform right now. Reform are doing pathetically compared with UKIP at the time. UKIP were getting to 20-30% in by-elections. They won a couple after the Bloomberg speech. You can understand why he was terrified. And I suspect Cameron thought, well, we'll probably get elected with the Lib Dems again. We probably won't get a majority. I can always count on them to veto it.
Yes.
And, of course, that never happened. And then he made the foolish error of holding the referendum quickly to get it out of the way, and did so at a time when migration across the Mediterranean was at huge levels and causing huge concerns without Europe. And I think without that, he probably would have won the referendum. I think it was also an element by 2015 that he thought, I can walk on water. I've won the AV referendum on the alternative voting system. I won the Scottish referendum. I got a majority in 2015, surprisingly perhaps. I can easily win this one.
But Jacob, a question for you. Here's Nigel Farage. We like Nigel. I disagree with just about most of what he says, but I like him. We get on well. Just say he stands in a seat, just say he wins, and just say he's a member of Parliament, and just say he's allowed back as a Conservative member. Would you vote for him as leader?
Well, this is the most hypothetical.
That was not a denial. That's not a denial.
What is it if ifs and ands were pots and pans, there'd be no need for tinkers?
Not a denial.
That is the most extraordinary leap of logic. But
I think the other thing about it, by the way, is the referendum would never have worked if it wasn't for the fact that the Labour Party was so pathetic in standing up for what they believed in, and Corbyn, who claimed to vote Remain, I don't think he did personally.
Well, I think Jeremy Corbyn is a great hero of Brexit,
didn't come out, and the Labour Party didn't come out, and argue for it. And I think, when the indictment sheet is drawn up, they should be on it as much as the Conservatives.
The best speech on Brexit was from Peter Shaw, actually. If you look at
yes,
those,
in Oxford Union.
absolutely right. The Labour minister, everyone thought he was going to be...
Just the 75 referendum. But rather a long time before.
But one final thought on that. That it seemed to me David Cameron followed the Harold Wilson playbook. Get a renegotiation, say this is a big change, put it to the people, expect to win.
Yes.
He made two mistakes. One is that he hadn't done the groundwork first. The second, Wilson didn't campaign. Wilson rose above it.
Yes.
And David Cameron got into the guts of it, and that made it impossible for him to carry on afterwards.
That's right. Wilson made hardly a speech, I think, in 75.
Yeah.
But I don't think Cameron would have wanted to carry on and actually carry out Brexit, would he? I mean,
no, because that's why it was right that he resigned.
All right.
He couldn't do that.
Well, the Foreign Secretary is very popular with my panel and indeed with me.